Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to tackle a huge question, one that seems to be at the heart of so many arguments.
Why do economies boom and then almost inevitably go bust? And why can't politicians ever seem to agree on how to fix things? Well, today we're going to get to the bottom of it. We're going to unpack the big ideas that drive our economy and figure out why these arguments even exist in the first place.
Okay, so to really get into this debate, we need to be on the same page. And that means we got to start with the basics. What exactly is macroeconomics?
So you can think of economics as being split into two main fields. On one side, you've got microeconomics. That's all about the individual trees, like how you decide what to buy at the store, or how one company prices its products. But then you have macroeconomics. That's about the entire forest. It's the big picture stuff for a whole country, like GDP, inflation, and unemployment.
At its core, macroeconomics is all about answering those massive questions. Why do some countries get rich while others struggle? And the whole field was really born out of a major crisis. Yeah. See, before the 1930s, pretty much everyone thought economies were self-correcting. Like, if there was a problem, it would just work itself out. And then, the Great Depression happened. It completely shattered that belief. It proved that a whole economy could get stuck in this terrible, painful downturn for years, and that single event challenged everything we thought we knew. It basically forced us to invent the field of macroeconomics.
All right, so to really grasp how economists look at the big picture, you need to understand two key forces. Let's kick things off with the first one. How much stuff an economy can actually make. This is what we call the supply side.
Now, you might be thinking, how on earth do you figure that out for an entire country? It sounds super complicated, right? But economists have this really elegant, powerful model they use to think about it. It's called the production function.
The easiest way to think about this is like a giant recipe for the whole economy. It basically says your total output, what economists call Y, comes from two main ingredients. You've got capital, that's all the machines, computers, factories, all the tools, and you've got labor, that's us, the people doing the work. The more ingredients you have, the more you can produce. Makes sense, right?
But take a look at the shape of this curve. See how it starts off really steep and then starts to flatten out? That's showing us a super important idea, diminishing marginal productivity. It's a fancy term, but the idea is simple. Imagine a bakery with one oven. Adding a second oven, huge deal. You can bake way more. But what about adding the 10th oven? It helps for sure, but it doesn't double your output like that second one did. Each new piece of capital adds a little less than the one before it.
And here's the thing, an economy's potential isn't fixed. That whole recipe can get messed up. For instance, imagine a sudden spike in the price of oil. Economists call this an adverse supply shock. All of a sudden, it's more expensive to run the machines and transport goods. Our existing capital and labor just become less productive. And you can see it right here. The entire curve shifts down. We literally can't make as much stuff, even with the same number of workers and machines.
Okay, so that's the supply side, our ability to make stuff. But producing things is only half the battle. Someone actually has to buy all that stuff. And that brings us to the other side of the coin, the demand side. The fancy term for this is aggregate demand. And really, all that means is the total spending on everything in the economy. Every person, every business, every government agency. And it's basically driven by three main groups of spenders.
This classic diagram really helps visualize how money moves around. You see, businesses pay people like you and me for our work. We then take that money and spend it, buying stuff from those same businesses. It's a circle, but it's not a perfect circle. Some of that money leaks out into savings or gets paid in taxes. At the same time, new money gets injected back into the flow when businesses invest or the government spends. So, if we break down that total demand, it's made up of a few key components. First, there's consumption. That's C, and it's pretty much everything we buy as individuals. Then you have investment, or I. That's when businesses spend money on new equipment or buildings. And finally, there's government spending, G, which is, everything the government buys, from highways to paperclips.
Now here's where it gets really interesting on the demand side. There's this incredibly powerful concept called the multiplier effect. Check this out. Say the government spends $100 to hire a worker to fix a road. That worker now has $100. They go and spend, say, 80 of it at a local restaurant. Now the restaurant owner has that $80. She then spends a portion of that at the grocery store, and on it goes. That initial $100 creates a ripple effect, generating way more than $100 in total economic activity. It's a huge deal. So let's recap. We've got supply, our capacity to produce things, and we've got demand, our desire to buy things, which has this powerful multiplier effect. And right here, this is it. The great, epic debate over which of these two forces is the real driver of the economy, that's the central battle in all of macroeconomics.
For more than 100 years, one side was totally dominant. The ideas of Adam Smith and what we call the classical school of thought. Their mantra was basically supply creates its own demand. The economy will always sort itself out. But then, as we said, the Great Depression came along and just blew that whole idea to pieces. It opened the door for a completely radical new way of thinking from an economist named John Maynard Keynes.
Okay, these graphs look a little intimidating, but they capture the entire argument perfectly. On the left, you've got the classical view. See that perfectly vertical supply line? That's them saying, look, at any given moment, the economy can only produce so much stuff, period. Demand can change, but our total output is fixed. Now look at the right, the Keynesian view. Their supply curve slopes upward. They're saying, not so fast. If people want to buy more stuff, businesses will fire up the factories and hire more people to meet that demand. That one difference, a vertical line versus a slope line, is literally the heart of the entire debate.
So let's just boil it all down. The classical view is that prices and wages are flexible. If there's a downturn, wages will fall, people will get hired again, and the economy fixes itself. Their philosophy? Government. Stay out of it. Laissez-faire. But the Keynesians? They say, hold on. In the real world, prices and wages are sticky. They don't fall easily. I mean, think about it. Your boss can't just cut your pay in half tomorrow. Because things are sticky, the economy can get trapped in a low-output, high-unemployment funk. And for Keynesians, the only way to break out of that is for the government to jump in and kickstart demand. And look, this isn't just some abstract argument for economics textbooks. This debate has massive, real-world consequences. It directly influences the policies that affect your job, your wallet, and the entire country.
Every time you hear a politician talk about cutting taxes on businesses to get them to invest more, that's 100% classical thinking. They're trying to boost the supply side. But on the flip side, when you hear about the government sending out stimulus checks to people or launching huge infrastructure projects to create jobs, that is pure Keynesian logic. It's all about juicing up the demand side to get the economy moving again.
So, in the end, that's what it all comes down to. This one big question. Is the economy a complex but ultimately self-healing machine that we should just leave alone? Or is it more like a powerful but finicky engine that needs a government hand on the wheel to keep it from veering off the road? Understanding where these two big ideas come from gives you the toolkit to start answering that question for yourself.